is something I promised last week, which is I'm going to put the GoPro in the pond. But I think what I need to do now is only feed in the feeding ring. I think that is it. It's pretty, I mean, there's a few wrinkles. It could probably do with an iron. After a little while, they came and started eating the food, and that's when I started to notice. Good morning. It's Sunday. It's a lovely sunny Sunday as well. That's showing off how dirty our windows are. Probably shouldn't do that. Right, so not a lot fish-wise today, I don't think. But what I am about to do is something I promised last week, which is I'm going to put the GoPro in the pond. And that's predominantly to have a look at the fish that have got a few little knocks, which I think, as I said, is from fighting over the food, especially under the plant that hangs over and into the pond at the back. So I'm going to put the GoPro in the pond. It's quite early on Sunday morning, but this is quite a good time to do it because the sun shines on a particular part of the pond. So anyway, I shall show you how I do that. So let me turn you around. Right then, don't know how much of this I'm going to do one-handed. Here's my GoPro. All right then, so I'll put that down and into the garage. And I get out this lovely contraption, which I'm not sure I'm going to be able to show you all of it. God, what a mess how conservatory is. Right, it's because I spend too much time tidying up the garage, not enough of the house. But anyway, this long stick is, I tell you what, I'm going to put this camera down. This long stick here is a stick that I've used in various ways in the pond to position the camera. It's not my favourite way of doing it. I did create something that sat on the bottom of the pond really nicely, but that didn't last very long, shall we say. Anyway, now the GoPro I've got is technically waterproof, but I like to put it in a case as well, just because I'm slightly, you know, bit of a chicken really. Right, let's turn the GoPro on. I think it's charged. I think the memory card's empty. We shall soon see if I can get that showing. I don't know how much of that you'll see, but technically, supposedly I've got 8 hours of time on the memory card, but it won't last that long. So 4K 60 frames a second, which is my chosen, 100% charge. Right, so I'll go and put it in the pond and I will bring you with me. Hopefully this works. Right. Here goes. Let me just put the camera down. Right, as you can probably see, that corner there, down there, I use the GoPro as a pointer stick. Gets the sun first thing in the morning, so it's up over there. Put it to the wrong camera then, never mind. I'm new to this YouTube lark. So I'm going to point the camera facing that direction, and to get the fish over there I'm going to throw some sinking pellets. That's my plan anyway. Get the camera at the right angle. Hopefully this will work. It's filming, and in it goes. Right, let's see this. This is probably one of the more confusing bits of video I've ever made. Yeah, but there you can see it. You see I've got like various horizontal kind of bits of media grid and pipe and stuff on this, and that's the various positions I've ever put it in. That's just to kind of balance it. but I can never really recreate it. Now I think it's at the right angle and pointing in the right direction. So we'll go and get some food. Right, so we're going to use this stuff, which is these sinking pellets. I'm not going to use sake curry. I could make the sake curry into sinking, but even my fish aren't that fussy, so I won't bother. I'll just use this nice sinking stuff. Now, my old carp, who were very used to me filming in the pond. I'm putting quite a lot of food in here, don't worry. My old carp, who are quite used to me feeding in the pond. As soon as I put the GoPro in, they'd go and swim around by the GoPro because they so associate the GoPro going in with food going in. The new carp haven't quite got that yet. But anyway, I will leave them to it and I will show you the results later on. Okay, see you later. Hello, Sunday afternoon. I've had a good Sunday. It's been nice and sunny. Haven't done a huge amount around the pond. It's been taken up with a front garden job this time. I'll just turn you around there. As you can see, there's the pond. Another warm day. As I thought, yeah, it's got a bit of algae growing, which is probably because I fed the fish so much and even the rapidly growing plants can't deal with it. So yeah, I think I might have to do a treatment at some point when I can afford it. One little garden job I've done that I haven't spoken about is that hose line. So I got a new hose line, got a relatively cheap one, and I've just attached it to that planter there. And that just makes spraying and all sorts of things, watering mud and grass and plants a lot easier. Anyway, let me take you to the garage a moment. Nothing to see here apart from my power washer, which is drying off there. Today, I have, as you'll see from this water draining here, I have cut all the plants that are growing up between those paving slabs and then power washed it all. So everything's looking cleaner. I haven't quite finished along the back there. But yeah, that's my wife's trees over there, which you actually see, because my car is by the side of the road. I better bring that in at some point. But yeah, that's pretty good. Nothing to do with the pond, but it is a job I needed. So yeah, that was my job today on this Sunday. That and feed my fish. I might go a little bit careful on the fish feeding just because of the nitrate really. So although nitrates, bit noisy wasn't it? Although nitrate's not harmful, there's still a lot of it because of how much ammonia is being produced, which the filters are dealing with, how much nitrate is being produced, which the filters are dealing with. But then there's a lot of nitrate, which my filters don't deal with that well. So, so yeah, we're left with, what's the word? We're left with a lot of nitrate and therefore we get an algae bloom. Now, sometimes it'll just die off itself, but I will be treating it and bear with me. I was looking for an empty tub of what I use, but I couldn't find it. But yeah, so I need to buy some more and I'll get rid of it. But as I say, it's not harmful. I did put the GoPro in the pond, as you would have seen this morning. And yeah, I just haven't gone through it because there's quite a few hours of footage. What I have noticed is the common carp, one, the fin is starting to separate. And two, it's got that bang on the head that I knew about. And it's all damaged its mouth a bit. And again, I think it's all because of pellets going underneath that plant that's overhanging the pond, and then they get all competitive for food, and I think that's why it's hurt itself. So what I think I might have to think about doing, and it might be a job I do this week, is make a feeding ring. And if you don't know what a feeding ring is, I will talk about more of that tomorrow or maybe the day after, but I think that might be a solution actually. So yeah, more about that tomorrow. But yeah, just a quick one today because most of the day's been taken up with cleaning the patio and watching the Tour de France, and later on watching the footy. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. Good morning. It's Monday, and if you've watched these vlogs before, or indeed my channel in general, you might know that Monday is the day, usually the day when I get in the pond and definitely do two jobs, which is using a small net to clear off detritus from the bottom of the pond and cut my plants back. Obviously that's more of a spring summer job than winter, but I also usually every other week take my pump apart and just clear out any muck that gets stuck in it, because I do find that the cage around the Vary pump, which is what I've got, and I've got an EA Vary pump 20,000 in the pond, tends to seem to let in bigger items than my old 13,000 litre own brand kind of pump did, and as a result it gets blocked over time, and time being, you know, a week to 10 days. So yeah, it's a bit of a pain. So I kind of take the cage off that, sometimes take the pump apart a bit and clear it out. It's something that I thought of a solution, and I could put some narrower mesh around the cage maybe. It would mean I'd have to clean the outside of the cage and it might not collect as much stuff. But it would be an easier clean, and I'd just be cleaning that mesh rather than taking the pump apart. If you've had a similar issue, let me know, or if you've just got some good ideas, let me know. Now, let me turn you around. Right, so as you can probably see, I haven't tidied up properly yet, so all the plants are cut back. The water's a bit murky. Oh, the fish are down there. They thought I'd finished. But yeah, now something I spoke about quite a lot in recent videos is that quite a lot of the fish, but especially the common, have got some sort of abrasions and knocks on their head, and both their mouth and the top of the head. And what I was thinking is food often gathers underneath that plant, and they often feed quite competitively underneath that plant. So today when I was in the pond, I had a look, and actually some of the twigs that enter the water from that plant are quite rough, in that I scratched my hand on them. So I'm thinking, as I said yesterday, that I need to find a solution, and that solution is probably going to be a feeding ring. Now, I've veered away from feeding rings in the past because they're a bit unnatural, and I like the natural look. I like seeing fish move around and eat and feed naturally. That's part of the reason I have a pond like I do. But equally, you know, I can't be having them get hurt, and also it might save the lilies a little bit as well. So I'm thinking of some ideas for a feeding ring. I'm just going to use what I've got in the garage really. I'm not going to spend any money on this. And just some other options that I could employ in terms of making feeding a safer thing. So I could just make all of my pellets sinking, and that would remove the problem. It's fairly easy to turn floating pellets into sinking pellets. In fact, I made a video. I shall link it at this point. But yeah, that's another option. Although again, I like seeing the fish come up. So my area might choose to put some kind of feeding ring or some way of putting pellets in so they don't drift away. It's probably in that corner there. But we will see. I will give it some thought. Again, if you've got any ideas, let me know. Yeah, so what about the rest of today after I've tidied up? Well, it's going to be fairly garage based and not particularly to do with the pond. So I moved these pallets in because it's going to rain later today, because I might be using them not for the main body of the work I'm doing today, but just if I'm running out of good wood, which is the wood down there. So I'm going to be making, or trying to make, a kind of store shed for the recycling boxes, which is something lots of people have done. But yeah, just to make things a little bit tidier. And yeah, I may have a think about a feeding ring as well. There's lots of different options. You can use PVC pipe. You could even use maybe some hose pipe. Now I have some green hose pipe in there. Now if that floats, because obviously it's got a float, that might be a nice option because at least it's green and it's kind of in keeping with the garden. So if I have enough of the green hose pipe and it does float, that's an idea, isn't it? I might do that. So anyway, I'll either come back to you today or tomorrow, depending on how I get on. And I may give you a brief glimpse at my awful woodwork as I try to create a recycling box shed. Anyway, that'll do for now. I will see you later. Hello, still Monday morning, in fact. Not very enthusiastic about making a recycling box shed today. So I've decided to focus on recycling on the feeding ring instead. So as I said, just a couple of minutes earlier, not something I really want to have in the pond, but I think, yeah, the fish are hurting themselves and, you know, you can't really ignore that. I might try and think of an alternative, more natural or subtle way of doing it in the future, but I've come up with an idea and I'll show you it now. Hold on, just turn you around. So, as you see here, I've got some green air hose. So what I've done, if that will focus, there you go, is I've put some green hose pipe to link it together, and it's quite strong and robust. It's quite hard to pull apart. I think that would be quite good. And somewhere over here, I found some fishing line, which you probably can't see. I don't know why I'm hoping that's going to show up on camera. Terrible. Anyway, you might just see it there. I've got some fishing line. So I'm going to tie that to that, then tie it around either the heron fence or some of the plant boxes and put it in position. And when it's there, I will show you. And then I'm going to try feeding them. Okay, see you in a bit. Right, so there it is in the pond. Yeah, it doesn't float particularly well. The shape isn't very, what's the word, level? Can't think of a proper word. So yeah, some of it's underwater, so it's not brilliant. But anyway, as I said, it's my first go at it. We'll see. I'm going to put some food in there and then stick the camera around and then see how they get on. They probably won't be very happy with it because their probably only frame of reference is a net, so they're not going to be too excited. I've tied the line, again you probably can't see it, so it's kind of pulling it up a little bit to try and hold it up and also keep the fishing line out of the water. Not for any catching the fish sense, but just so it's not something else they might hurt themselves on. Anyway, I'll put some food in it and then leave the camera around and then show you the results. Good morning, it's Tuesday. Time for an update on the feeding ring and the fish and how well they've taken to it. Now, I think I said yesterday that their only frame of reference for something of that shape is a net. So they might be a little bit nervous of it. And that's proven the case really. So let me turn you around and I'll show you the current state of play. So I put it in there yesterday, I think late morning, I can't remember. There it is. And I put about that many pellets in there. And it rained a lot and that knocked some pellets out and the fish fed on them. And yeah, they slowly reduced in number, but not really because the fish were feeding on them. So what they were doing a lot yesterday, because I was watching them on my CCTV, was swimming quite close to it. You may be able to see them, they're on the bottom at the moment. And then veering away at the last minute. And they definitely knew that there were pellets in there, or they could certainly smell food. But they didn't really feed from it. So as time went on, yesterday evening into darkness, and it rained quite a lot, and less pellets were in the ring. And then when I got up this morning and checked, there was one pellet, I think, left in the ring. But I don't think it was because they were feeding on it. I think it was because it rained in the night and it kind of knocked them out. So this morning, I put some new pellets in the ring, as you can see, and I'm gonna monitor it again. Now I don't think they're super happy at all, but I'm kind of hoping that it's just a time thing and they'll get used to it. As I said, I'm not particularly happy about having a feeding ring in the pond, but I'm gonna plough on with it and let them get used to it, hopefully. I mean, I think eventually hunger will get the better of them and they'll start feeding, hopefully. It's a little bit colder. I think temperature in the pond's gone down to 17 now, which, yeah, it's dropped a bit, but that's okay. That's okay. Not a lot planned for today. I may start installing the, go away finger, may start installing the new tap over there. I haven't actually got the tap, but I've got the pipe work. So I may do that, which will mean putting a T-junction down in the bottom one, which is that one there, and then running pipe all along there, behind that privacy screen stuff, and then along there, I'm going to get good at YouTube one day, along there and then up there, just so it's ready for when I actually get the tap. Yeah, the plants over here aren't doing bad, aren't doing great. I'm just going to leave them alone. I'm going to try benign neglect again, which sometimes works. My wife's veg and strawberries are going well. Getting quite a lot of strawberries. She picked a ton at the weekend, so it's just the one struggling to get ripe at the moment. As for what I'm going to do today, don't know. Really don't know. A lot of it's going to be monitoring those fish. I started writing some notes for another video, as well as editing the FinOp video, which I've done quite a lot of. And yeah, I mean, the fin has now almost totally separated into what it was like before I did the operation. So yeah, I'm going to have a plan B, which is almost certainly going to be super glue. But I am going to get some medicative, that's not the word. What's the word? That's really annoying me. It's age, definitely age. So some medication grade, some medical grade glue, not just any old glue, and stuff that's waterproof, which I know super glue is, when it's dry, it's basically waterproof, but I'm going to get that because I want to get it the best chance of working. So I'm not going to do that in the near future because medical grade glue is, wound closing glue is more expensive than ordinary super glue, which is probably over the top getting it. I mean, it's not hugely expensive. It's pounds, but I'm gonna get some of that. So that's probably going to be in a couple of weeks. I'll get that and I'll do that, and then I can complete the video, as it were, I think. Yeah, but I should be releasing another video in the middle of that. I'm just going to finish writing the notes and film some B-roll. Yes, B-roll, proper YouTuber. And then do some recording and then edit it and put it out. That's my plan anyway. So I'll do that in a bit. So I've had, let me turn you around again. I've had some measuring up of the wood, and I've got some wood up there. That blue bag is my leaf netting. I put it in those blue bags because it was looking like it was going to catch on the mechanism to the garage door. So anyway, spinning you around, getting you drunk. I don't think I've got enough wood of that kind of sort of like 2x2 wood. I haven't got enough of that to start making the recycling box shed. So I'm going to do some more Facebook Marketplace searching before I can start. Yeah, which is a bit of a shame-ish. I wasn't that keen, I've got to be honest. yeah, so I will get back to you later and update you on how the fish are doing and whether they're ever going to eat again. I'm sure they will. Hello, it's Thursday. Sunny, lovely Thursday. I've just recorded a whole lot in the garage, but as you can see, I had the Tour de France on, and I was just worried that because I hadn't muted it, there may be some issues because they play music and stuff as well, and so I'm redoing it. So, what didn't I do yesterday? Well, I didn't do anything yesterday other than film the fish. Very unhappy with the feeding ring. But eventually, and later on, I'll do a little bit of chat and I'll just talk through what they were doing or not doing and show you some footage of that because it's quite funny. They've nearly got there. I mean, they have fed out of it now, but they're still a little hesitant, I think it would be fair to say. Anyway, so what am I doing today? Well, let's turn you around. Right, so I've got out a lot of my Speed Fit stuff and I'll show you what I've done. So, as I've spoken about, I wanted to put a tap down the other end of the garden. Sneak preview. Just for kind of cleaning things and rinsing things out and using the power washer and things like that. I'll take off my terrible garage window frame that's on the list, on the big list, as is fixing the tumble dryer outlet. No, I wanted a tap down the other end, so it's a fairly simple matter of tying into this feed here. So I've got this double outside tap here. This one here goes to my, sorry that's bad filming, goes to my 3-stage chlorinator and the pond, and this one goes down there, all the way down there, and then it goes to that tap, which is mainly connected to that new hose. So all good. So yeah, I've just tapped into there, so to speak, into the one, because that one on the right is always on and that one on the left is always off, except when I'm filling the pond up. And the reason that one's always off is because this tap here, you can do quite sensitive adjustments. So to get the right flow back into the pond, I leave that permanently set, and I just have that one permanently off unless I need to fill the pond up. So if I was to turn that on, you will now see the water spraying into the pond. Now, because I've got it on a hose function and it sprays out, it looks much faster than it actually is. It's actually quite a slow rate. Anyway, so I've tapped into there with a T-piece and there it goes. Now, whilst I've got all this storage out of the way, that's where my drainage pipe work enters the garage and goes through the garage, and then it runs down there and then it goes underground all the way down there out to the various access points. Right, so I can't pull this away because I've stuck it back down again, but this new water pipe work runs behind a privacy screen, which I don't have as a privacy screen. I have it just to give a black colour to the fence. Now, the reason I didn't just paint it like that is because it's fairly impossible, especially with the old fencing I've got, to paint fences that are shared fences and not get black on the other side, especially with my painting. So yeah, I put these up as well. Anyway, so the pipe work runs along there. You can probably just see it there, all the way along there, comes out there, round there, and up there to this point, which is a bit of a temporary point because I haven't got the tap yet. And you ask, why did you do this now? And the reason I did it now before I got the tap is the chance of something going wrong, and it was just a job I fancied doing. I quite like doing Speed Fit pipe. I am going to put another connector there just to keep it nice and straight, but I'll wait till I got the tap. Yeah, I quite like doing it, so it's a job I wanted to do, so I thought I'll get it all done, and then when you can see it leaking, I'll talk about that in a minute, when I get the tap I can just swap it out. Right, so yeah, it leaked a fair amount. That's because this bodged way of capping this off with the bits I had wasn't super successful and still isn't, even after double the amount of PTFE tape and tightening this to 1 inch of its life, it's still leaking out of there, I think. A tiny, tiny amount. Because as I said, this feed is always on. So, yeah, I'm kind of stuck with that. But it's not a lot of water, and it's the kind of drip that might stop by itself. And it won't be that long until I get the tap anyway. I might well put something down there to collect the drips. Right, so that's the job I've done. But that's not all I'm going to do. As you can see down here, I've got an ant problem. Yeah, but I've always had an ant problem in this garden, so I'm not surprised. There's a sneak preview of food in the feed in it that I've just put in, and then just before I picked up the camera, so I, pushed them away now. But yeah, so what else am I going to do today? This is Thursday afternoon. I'm not quite sure what the time is, but this is Thursday afternoon, so I finished work for the day. And yeah, I might crack on with something. Now, that something will probably be a green screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that sort of grey bit of wood there as a kind of board for it, and then attach the green screen to that board, and then attach it to that wall. That's my plan. Now, the other thing I thought of doing, and if you've done anything similar, let me know, is I'd quite like to put some guttering on my shed. And I don't really want to spend money when I don't have to, but I have got quite a lot of 2-inch pipe and some 1-inch pipe that I don't think I'm going to need for anything. And the thought came to me, couldn't I make that into some guttering? I've got some 2-inch bends, and I've got loads of bits down there. And I just thought that I could turn that into something guttery. I thought I'd obviously have to cut it and make it, sort of a half circle or, 2/3 circle maybe. But I thought that might be an idea. It'd be easy to attach to the wall. I think I've got brackets as well. Maybe not for 2-inch. No, I might have brackets for 2-inch. So I could make some guttering out of that pipe. It's an idea. And I might redo the roof at some point, but that'll involve buying stuff. Although I did think about using the liner, that pond liner I found, and putting that on top of what's already there and trying to do it neatly. I didn't know. Let me know what you think. I'm not so bothered with how it looks, but yeah, just to, waterproof it a bit more. Because, sheds don't last that long, and I'd like it to last as long as possible. Yeah. Okay, that'll do for now. I will see you later. Hello. I've made a green screen. So I've had a green sheet that I've used for a while on various videos, and it's done all right. It might be my software, or it might just be that green screening is more difficult than it's made to look. But it's quite difficult because you'll get shadows, and if you've got folds, it can be quite difficult. And so when you pick a green colour to exclude, I'm not going to go into how you green screen. But suffice to say, you need a consistent green colour on whatever your screen is, which means as flat as possible, as few wrinkles as possible, all that sort of thing. So, yeah, so I've had a number of incarnations of my green screen, and I used to use it quite a lot, not so much lately. I've also started using another technique to kind of remove backgrounds and things, but it's quite long-winded, and although it probably works better, but I don't want to use it all the time. So I've kind of wanted a green screen that I can go and film against, because I think it would be quite useful. And I'm going to use it for the end of this little section of the vlog. Right, so let's turn the camera around. And there we are. That is it. It's pretty, there's a few wrinkles. It could probably do with an iron. So basically I've got it's on a board that's quite heavy, but nicely flat. So that's why I chose that one. And I've stapled it at the back. I wanted as little kind of holding it on as possible, and I didn't want it too permanent either, because I might mess about with it and do whatever. So basically it's just kind of sort of almost friction fit between there and the bottom one. And just as a kind of safety measure, I've put this here, and that means it can't really fall out. So that's all good. And it's nice and level actually for me. Right, there we go. So I think, it fills the frame quite nicely. I've got to remember to not wave my hands out of frame. That would be very, very weird, depending on what the background I was doing. But anyway, I'm waffling. So it fills the frame, everything's good. It's kind of fairly robust and it's not going to fall over, but it's not really permanent either, because I don't really, I dare say I'll change my mind and do things. As I say, you can hear some traffic in the background, but it's a relatively quiet room, this. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, one of the big problems with green screens, as I was bumbling on about earlier, is you need wrinkle free. So there's a few wrinkles kind of there, but I could maybe iron it, and I don't think they're bad enough anyway. The big problem is that shadow there. So what I'd do if I was doing this properly is I'd have some kind of light shining. So probably over that side, I'd have a light shining and it would fill there. So there'd be less kind of changes in the brightness of the green, because that can make green screening tricky. But there you go. I will play around with some green screen during this bit of the video. I may have already done it. I don't know. Future me will sort that out. So I've put most of the tap pipe work in. Just got to wait to get the actual tap. And I've done the green screen. And I need to do some tidying up, but that'll be it for today. The fish are doing well. They've just been eating half the food in the feeding ring, which is good. So I'll talk a little bit about the feeding ring and how it went. So, as I said, the feeding ring, I think, looks to them, not only does it look like something that they're not used to being in the pond, and they are quite sensitive about things that they're not used to being in the pond, it probably looks to them like a net. And obviously, certainly for them, they've seen some of the fish be netted lately. So they're probably a little bit worried about a net. So it's taken them a while. And I've done a lot of filming, which I'm either going to show a bit behind me, or I'll just cut me out of this and just interrupt it, depending on how the green screening goes. And they've done a lot of kind of approaching the ring, getting closer and closer over time, but just not feeding out of it. And I've been quite sort of strict, as it were, with them, in that I've only been putting food in the ring. I've not been putting food anywhere else in the pond. Now, the rudd couldn't care less about the feeding ring, and they've been nibbling away at the food. They're a bit nervous doing it because usually the carp will come and push them out of the way. But they've been getting quite a lot of it. And sometimes when they splash around and feed it, it will come out of the feeding ring and float around, and the carp have been picking some up. But it literally took 2 hours, 2 days before the first of the fish fed out of the ring. And it was one of the mirror carp, not the common. And it took a couple of days before they actually fed out of it. And then once they started, they got relatively confident, but they're still not, as soon as food lands in the water, normally they're on it, and they're still not like that. It will still take them a little while. So, but I think what I need to do now is only feed in the feeding ring. I think to then go back to not feeding in the feeding ring would mean they have no good reason to trust it. So that's my plan. Now, I still don't know if I'm going to permanently use the feeding ring. But I do think there's enough evidence that pellets going under that plant and competitive feeding under that plant is where they're getting some injuries from. So it just doesn't seem like a good idea really to continue feeding openly in the pond. Now, I've had some ideas about how to make the feeding ring look a bit more natural, not really to the fish. I just want them to get used to it. But really in the pond, because it looks horrible, really. And I've had a couple ideas. You can get fake plants. Now they tend to take a while to look relatively natural. They tend to be a sort of a bright green like that. And I'd quite like, I could sort of attach some to it and then move it close to where the plants are. Now you can get fake lilies, you can get fake, some of the sort of deeper water underwater plants. And that really got me thinking actually, because I've wanted some really totally submerged plants in the pond. And I had an abortive attempt at doing that a while back. Up there? Trying to work it out. Up there. Anyway, where I got some plants and I made a kind of rig for them and used some pebbled liner and tried to get them growing, but the carp I had at the time, who were less boisterous than these ones, absolutely ruined them in a couple of days, so that didn't go well. So I'm really, I kicked the tripod. So I'm really wanting to have something that looked quite natural and be really good for the underwater filming and watching the fish move through plants like they would in their natural habitat. And I found some fake underwater plants that aren't ridiculously expensive. They probably will look super fake when they first go in, but then they'll start to get algae on and they'll start to look more real. And they're as sort of 90 centimetres long, which is brilliant. So I'm really tempted to go down that route and plant some, not plant some, they're not plants, but find some way of fixing them to the bottom of the pond and that doesn't look awful. And yeah, so the thought of trying to make the feeding ring look more natural has kind of set me off on a different path, really. So that's one of my future projects. I don't know how well it'll go. I don't know if it'll come to fruition. I have lots of these harebrained schemes that normally when I'm not doing vlogs, you'll never hear about. Because I dismiss them. I have a degree of editorial control over my decision making, but sometimes I carry them out as well and they don't work well. Like the crucian carp probably wasn't a great idea. The real plants I stuck to the bottom of the pond wasn't a great idea. But we'll see. Anyway, that's the plan. That's my day today. That's what I've been thinking about. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't know what I'm going to get up to tomorrow. I am waffling terribly. It's too hot and I've been working and yeah. But I will see you tomorrow. Ta-ra. Hello, there's my pond filling up after the Saturday pond and filter clean, which if you don't know involves quite a lot of pond vacuum, quite a lot of cleaning the filters and filter brushes and K1 media and pressure filters and tempests and all sorts, and then a lot of filling the pond back up again, which is what it's doing now. And as you may have noticed, I didn't do any filming yesterday. I did quite a lot of work and it was quite hot and I went for a nice walk instead. So didn't do anything pond related or garden related or even garage related, which you now see me in. And I haven't really got a lot to talk about today, but I think to finish off this vlog, I've got to talk about when I put the GoPro in the pond and did some underwater filming, and just talk about what I found, which I think I've mentioned, and show you some clips from that. I think that would be a good idea. So I'll just sit myself down on my green screen and yeah, we can have a talk about what I got up to. As you may have noticed there, I did a really super subtle edit as I set my phone up on the tripod. Probably not that subtle. What I'm trying to do here is I'm sitting on my bench and I'm not leaning right back against the green screen so that I avoid that shadow. It's a plan. We'll see how well it works. It'll make green screening easier, I think, and look better. Anyway, so yeah, I wanted to talk about the underwater filming I did during the week. Now, if you followed my channel for 4 years or so, you know I used to do a lot of underwater filming. and it was one of my favourite things to do. Now, the videos didn't really do that well compared to videos about filters and things like that, but they were quite well liked amongst the people who did watch them, which is really good thing. So, but I haven't done so much lately, and part of that was I was in between GoPros. I had another sort of camera that I could film underwater, but it wasn't as good. And then I lost my fish, and I kind of lost my enthusiasm for both the pond and the channel to a degree, and then I sort of got it back over the last year. So I'm going to do some more underwater filming. So let's have a look. So as you can see, to begin with, I dropped some sinking pellets in, a little bit away from the camera, because these carp, as I think I said, aren't quite so comfortable around the camera as my previous carp were. After a little while, they came and started eating the food, and that's when I started to notice a couple of things. The first thing I noticed, there was a lot of algae growing, which is still there. I need to do a treatment, but it isn't terrible. And the other thing is, I noticed that a number of the fish had some bumps and bruises and abrasions and stuff. And mostly, and most specifically on their mouths, but also the common carp, especially on the top of its head. And partly I was thinking, well, are they flashing and flicking, and that's where they're getting those kind of injuries. But often they'll get scrapes or abrasions on their sides if they're doing that, rather than the top of their heads. So then I thought about what they're banging their head on, and there isn't really anything aside from that plant, which I've spoken about earlier in the video. And I'm pretty sure that they're getting themselves hurt when they are feeding underneath that plant. And, well, it's a bush really, I think. I'm not sure what kind of plant it is. And especially when they're feeding very competitively, which as the water's warmed up, they really are feeding more and more competitively. So I think that's the problem really. So that's why I've introduced the feeding ring. And if you had seen earlier in the video, they were a bit hesitant about that, but they're great with it now. So much so that I've literally walked around the pond and dropped the pellets into the ring on my way round. And before I've got to the rear of the pond, they've started eating it. So it's going to be quite useful actually, because I've always wanted to try and see if they'll eat other things like oranges and things like that, half of an orange, and they've been very reluctant. But I think if I put it in that ring, one, it won't get hidden around the pond and end up in the skimmer, but also I think they're starting to associate something in that ring being food. So it might be a little hint for them. So yeah, I quite like doing the underwater filming. I think it looks quite good. I had to do some colour grading and all that sort of stuff, but you have to do that. I do have a filter that would help with underwater filming, but it's a little tricky with the waterproof case. So I don't need to use that waterproof case with my GoPro, because the GoPro is waterproof, but I'm too much of a coward not to put it in the case. So I'd rather do the post editing and stuff to get it looking good than to take a risk with the camera really, because I can't afford to buy a new one. So anyway, I hope you're enjoying watching that. This is going to be my last bit of this vlog. I hope you've enjoyed it. Not sure what I'm going to do next week in terms of the pond or videoing. I'm still going to do the vlogging. I've got to make a couple of things non-pond related. I want to make a reel for the hose I've got at the front of the house. I talked about the recycling bin shed. I'm going to have another look at that and see how I can bodge that together. In terms of the pond, not a lot going on except for next Saturday or Sunday, so it might not be in next week's vlog. I'm going to glue the fin of the common carp. As you may see in this underwater video or some of my other videos about the ring, it's almost completely separated again. So I'm going to glue it back together and hopefully that'll work. I'm going to try and do it, and you may think this foolhardy, without sedating. That's my plan. I'm going to get my son, who used to come fishing with me quite a lot and caught large carp, so he's very confident handling them, to help, like I did towards the end of the suturing. And I think that might make the whole process a bit quicker, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to think about it. I haven't decided yet. So that's going to be next Saturday or next Sunday. So it might not be, I might not talk about it again until the vlog afterwards. And I definitely need at some point to clear out, to do a big clean on the pressure filter and Tempest, which I've been aware of. Again, I don't know if I'm going to get it done next week. I've got quite a lot of work next week. Yeah, back to work properly. But I will let you know what I get up to. And also let you know of all the harebrained schemes that I have that I don't eventually follow through, which is, if anything you can take from my vlogs, me doing vlogs now, is that I'll probably mention every idea that pops in my head, and you'll see quite how few of them make it to fruition. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching this. You don't tune in, but you know the expression. I really do appreciate it. I've had a fair few subscribers. I'm now up to 913, so just 87 away from 1,000. There we go. And if you're not subscribed, please think about it. I really would appreciate it. And that's about it. Again, thanks a lot for tuning in, and I will see you next time.